Welcome to the Lucidist podcast, where I explore everything, including things I very much do not want to explore. And that's what I'll be exploring today. I recently had a dear friend, someone I have made beautiful music with, and just a beautiful man. And he took his life. And I want to talk about what I've learned from that in finding out within the last 3 days. It's going to be random because loss is both like a haze and a spear. And there's moments where you're just speared with the actuality of it, and then there's moments where it's just a haze and you can't make heads or tails or any sense of it. To begin with, it's interesting. I know 3 people in the last, 3-4 years who have taken their life, and all of them are over 60. And I think that's very interesting. I've always thought that, mental health issues were for the young, right? You got to get through your teenage years, maybe some of, your 20s, things start to settle out. Maybe you have another hard little bit, when something big happens in life, rocks your world. But certainly by the time you're 60, you've got things figured out. And that is so not the case, and it's really has woken me up to sort of the lies and distortions that are still inside of me concerning this. As I've shared before, I've definitely had mental health struggles, suicidal ideations. I can't say how close I've come because I haven't actually attempted, but it has been terrifying enough to think back at how close I was to any action, and it's terrifying because, as I was explaining to someone yesterday, they were like, well, someone who I guess doesn't really understand this space, and they were speaking as though the person is thinking clearly. And I said, no. I said, when I've been in those spaces, my perspective is so distorted. It is so convoluted. It is so, take funhouse mirrors, to the extreme. Like there's no clear thinking. There's no rationality, it's, because when I was talking to my friend, he was saying, well, you just got to call somebody. And I'm like, it's, I wish it were like that easy. It's almost like one of the things I don't know that this is true, but one of the things that I think I need to do for my own mental health is put processes in place in case I ever get there again. Like I need to know how to get out before I get there, or I might not get out. And I've kind of just assumed that I would never go there again. Like I was, I've kind of been doing okay, and I was like, well, I don't know that I'll never go back there. And I guess that's what my friend showed me is you never know. Like life is so fragile, and it can just turn on a dime, and, you never know. And the mind, honestly, as strong as it can be, it also has a fragility. You never know when something in it is going to break in such a way that you're no longer thinking clearly and processing life clearly. So as I thought age also, I was like, oh, I'm getting older, and I'm sure that's, I'll get more and more steady and da-da-da. And I was like, no, like age isn't always the answer either. You can't just like sort of wait it out. I'm not saying there's not some truth to that, but for me, I've realized it's not it's not just a fail-safe. Like getting older is not just going to suddenly, protect you from, sort of any demons you have in your mind. And so it's just been interesting for me to sit with the loss of him, a beautiful man and a beautiful music creator, so talented. And he had just, the last time I saw him, he was at my house and we were rehearsing. And it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And it was just very, very soon after that this happened. And so it was this like juxtaposition where I was like, wait, we were just making beautiful music. How did we get here? How did I not pick up on, of course I can look in hindsight and I'm like, you can suddenly see all the cues and clues, and I should have and I could have. And I'm not saying I don't take responsibility, but I do take reflection seriously. I realize I'm not responsible for this person's what they did, but I also don't want to just look away. Meaning, I have and will spend time reflecting on, what cues or clues did I sort of overlook? Where when I was talking to someone recently, I said we're so Puritan in the way we deal with each other and our emotions. This is a very sterile Puritan way, and there were a few moments where I was that. I was very. He was, he was having a moment where it could have gone either way. I remained. I wasn't bothered by sort of maybe the emotional response he was having to the moment, but I also didn't move toward him in any kind of physical or emotional way. Meaning, in hindsight, if something kind of, and there were moments in the last couple of weeks where I was just like, that's odd, or that's unusual, or that's a little bit strange, but people are strange. I don't understand people. So I was just like, well, that's just how they're behaving. Now I hope in the future I will be less Puritan and I will be more authentic, meaning, it seems like you're not normally this way. Are you okay? I just want to make sure, are you okay? But of course I feel so stupid. Like the person looks at you like, what's wrong with you? Yes, I'm fine. And you're like, oh, okay. So, like, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to offend. I just wasn't sure. And also, on the receiving end of that, if someone asks me, are you okay? To trust that their intention is good and not to feel shame and judgment because maybe I am struggling. And to be able to say, I said the words for the first time yesterday to someone, and I said them for the second time to another friend today. And I said, I wonder if I was in that space, if I could say the words that may save my life, which is, I am not safe with myself. And just even saying the words, there's so much grief. One, like, just to admit I'm not safe with myself. Like, that's just a very sad place to be. It would be so nice to think that we're always safe with ourselves. But I would like to admit that that's not always true. There are definitely times where I mentally hurt myself or emotionally hurt myself. Not necessarily physically, but, in my own way I have, whether it's through over exercising or, who knows. It doesn't matter, but there are times when we aren't safe with ourselves, and to say those words feels enormous. Feels like an enormous, unveiling. I just don't know if there are many words more raw than that. I am not safe with myself. I wish I had, and I hope I can. I hope I never have to. I hope I never have to say, are you okay? And if someone isn't, I hope they could say, I am not safe with myself right now. And I will say, okay. what do we need to do? That's thank you. And what do we need to do? And also, if I am in that place and that is what I need to say, I want to be able to say, I'm not safe with myself right now. And I hope someone can look at me and say, okay, what do we need to do? Let's figure this out. It's just, it's truly like heart-wrenching and I don't spend a lot of time there, and I'm not going to, but, the loss, and also I don't know that there's a lot I can say about that, because I understand what I understand, but it's just been interesting the last few days to process the fact that age is not going to suddenly save you from age is not necessarily, you don't age into mental health, so to speak. I mean, you can, but it isn't a sure thing. I guess that's the difference, is you absolutely can mature into mental health. That is the goal, I would hope. But it isn't a sure thing. And it's probably wise for me. Like I said, I feel like what's come up for me is really owning that. Like, I'm not just age alone is not going to mature me into mental health. It's going to take, I'm not even sure, things like this, things like practicing saying, I am not safe with myself, to be able to say those words out loud, to I've never said them to myself, period, but to say them out loud to someone literally felt like I was breaking a spell. And I felt so ashamed and scared to say them, even in the conversation. I was saying them in conversation. I wasn't even saying them as true. I am safe with myself right now. But just to even say the possibility of it was terrifying. But it also felt like it broke the spell, which I think is so important. I say that all the time, like just being able to speak something aloud for me. I always say once I say it aloud, I'm halfway to home. I'm now on second base, and I can figure out what needs to be figured out and bring it home in a safe way. So that's the first thing, is you're not just going to age is not suddenly going to bring you into mental health. You're gonna have to work on it, or it will follow you. Someone said to me yesterday when I was talking to them, and they're from Greek descent, and their father grew up in Greece, and he said, my father had this saying, and he'd always say it to me, and I didn't understand it when I was younger, and he said, I understand it now. And it's an old Greek saying, I think, or so I've been told, and it's old age doesn't come alone. Old age doesn't come alone. And the person telling me is getting older, and he's like, it's so true. I mean, old age doesn't come alone. And, basically, he's like, what my dad was, I'd say, like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? He's like, old age doesn't come alone. I mean, you're going to have all kinds of aches and pains in your bodies, all kinds of loss of the ability to do things, the loss of people in your life, all kinds of new mental and emotional, struggles. Like old age doesn't come alone. And it's interesting, because I'm going to my friend who was 105, who passed away recently. Her funeral is on Saturday. It's in a few days. And as I'm getting ready to go to her funeral, I think so much about what I learned from her. And it was like this resilience, and to keep learning and keep trying. Like, you just have again and again and again and again, which just reminds me of my meditation. Like, every time I sit down, it's a whole new again and again. I mean, every morning and every night comes a lot, and it comes quick when you're sitting down twice a day to meditate. Like, morning and night seem to suddenly be like side by side. I feel like I'm always meditating. And you've got to start again and again and again. It doesn't matter how good your last meditation was. You have to start again. Doesn't matter how bad your last meditation was, you have to start again. Like you're always starting again. I feel like it's interesting because part of me is a little bit despondent. It's like, oh, here we are back again with our mental health issues. And it's interesting because I wasn't really having any, but this event triggered them for me. There's the grace in that. But so I feel like, oh, here we are again, but I have to remember we're starting again in a new place on an old topic, blah, 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 like start again. So that's the big thing is old age isn't going to fix it. Just simply getting older is not going to fix any problems and wash away any demons. The next big thing is, conveying to people the severity of what's going on is crucial at these times. Because there's so many people struggling. So many people, it's so many people are struggling. And it's really hard to parse out when the difference. And that's what I realized is, I talked to somebody, they're really struggling and they get through it, and then there's someone who's really struggling and he wasn't even, I don't know. I mean, obviously I guess the other thing I've realized is you can't just say I'm really struggling. Like you have to be able to speak the truth, the severity of it. You have to be able to verbally communicate which is so hard. It's like asking the impossible. It's like I told my friend, you're not thinking well in those places. And so to ask, yourself to convey the severity of what's happening when you're not even thinking well yourself. Again, that's why I feel like it's important to sort of like practice and put things in place so that if I'm ever there, will something remember, the times that I practice saying, I'm not okay and I need help badly. Like, I am not safe with myself. I cannot be alone. Like, will those words come out of my mouth if I ever need to? Can we have a global conversation where people practice saying those words to each other? Just practice. And hopefully they're never said, but thank God when they are, right? Like, can we practice saying to each other, asking someone like, do you feel like you could say these words to me? Maybe I go to a friend and I say, could you say to me, I am not safe with myself. I need help. Like, that would be a great place to start where the person could practice just saying it. They didn't even have to have mental health issues. They could just practice saying it. And then I could practice saying it back to them. I am not safe with myself. I need help. Where can we practice being broken, needing help, really being in a severe place, kind of a tipping point, so that when we get there and we're not thinking straight and we're not okay, we've said the words and we know that there's someone, at least one someone, possibly more, that we can say them to, and maybe some part of us will have the impetus to break through kind of that whatever is, whatever grip is on us, that we'll break through that grip and say the words, make the call, do whatever needs to be done. It was interesting because I was talking to someone this morning and I don't know him super well, but well enough, and we were talking about this, and they shared with me that they have, unfortunately, tried to take their life, and of course it's, the regret is huge that they were ever there, and the appreciation that they failed is enormous. And when we were just talking about, and he said, it's even harder, of the 3 adults over 60 that I know who have taken their lives, 2 were men. And, he did say he feels like, and I can't disagree with this, he feels like it's worse for men. The stigma, the shame, is worse for men. And in the past I would have said, no, it's not. Like it's equally hard for women and blah, 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 blah. But then I was listening to it, overhearing a conversation nearby in this public place, and a woman was talking about a first date she'd had with someone, and she said, oh yeah, and the man teared up. And I was like, pussy. And I was done with the date. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like it's a real thing. Like when a man tears up around me, I'm like, oh, the man is feeling his emotions. How nice. Isn't that great? Like, great. Like, yeah, of course he feels emotions. I feel emotions. Yeah. But in that moment, I was like, oh, this is what they're hit with. I mean, and her like condemnation, her disdain, her contempt. I mean, it was it was almost vicious. It's almost vicious the way she talked about this man who had teared up. And I was just like, wow. Oh, so when my friend today was like, it's even harder for men, because that's what we meet sometimes, and we don't know. So, anyway, so the second thing is just about, can we practice saying the words? Meaning it's like, can we plant this, the seeds in our society, in our global society, where it's safe to say those words to someone, and we understand what it means. Maybe we have no idea what to do, but at least we understand, oh, this is a clear cry for help. It's almost like, like calling 911. Like if someone says, I am not safe with myself, I need help, it's like, okay, they just called 911. I picked up. I'm the operator. Okay, now I might need to get some help because I don't know what to do. I wouldn't know what to do. But at least they've called and someone answered, sort of thing. And that's the first step. That's the first that has to happen. So those are the two things: the age and like practicing saying the words. The other thing I've realized is how much people matter. I mean, this wasn't a person like my daily life revolved around him or whatever, but it doesn't matter. People just matter more than maybe our daily interactions may show. It's been a profound shockwave through an extended community. I mean, suddenly you realize all the connections people have. And if he knew like the outpouring of love and devastation and heartbreak, but then it's so interesting. It's like, why aren't we just showing that every day? And it has been interesting how many people have said as we've had these little small conversations, people's, they want to immediately say, I haven't said it enough, and I haven't said it recently, but you all mean the world to me. Please, know how much I love and care for you, and I'm here. And it's just not just said enough, but I don't know. I just think these mental health issues are going to continue to rise and rise and rise and rise and become literally like the surface on all our minds, because there's just too much trying to think of, I guess the real words that come are, like, we've had enough. This is enough. We're done. We're going to do it differently. We're going to fix these puritanical ways of dealing with each other, with emotions, with men, with women, with children. Oh my gosh, I was watching this thing and somebody had this old book and it was called The Rod, God, and Your Children's Bod. And it was basically about how God gave parents the right to use the rod upon their children. I was just horrified. And this is a real book, and it was not a recent book. I don't remember what year it was published, but 50 years. It wasn't 100 years ago. It was less than 100 years ago. Anyway, and someone was talking about it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I'm sure there are people, that still believe in that, but that abuse is ever the answer, hitting each other with and I don't consider, just because you're an adult and a child did wrong, I think spanking is still hitting. I mean, you literally are hitting another object. So you can call it spanking if you like, but you're still hitting an object. And that object happens to be a child. My mother had her willows and my father had his belt, and I didn't use any with my children. And I'm so grateful they have no idea what it's like. And it's interesting to continue to learn. I mean, I'm 5+ decades into my journey and continue to learn how to be safe with myself. And it's interesting because over the last, 2 years in this home that I've been in, I have built this beautiful safe haven for myself. And even last night I crawled into bed and I laid down and there was my whole body and mind, just everything just relaxed. And I literally said aloud, I'm so blessed. I'm so grateful that I have a home where I am safe and I am loved. And it was just such a beautiful moment. And I think that's one of the reasons this also has been so triggering for me. It's not just the loss and the confusion of my friend and his action, but it's also triggered in me that, how do I continue to make and be a safe space for myself? And it kind of made me realize, well, there is still kind of that part of your psyche that can attack you, that does and has attacked you, and may yet still. I mean, that was the sad thing is I would like to say it's gone and it will never come back, and that may be true. But in the meantime, I feel called to explore this more deeply, understand it more deeply. And I think the fact that it triggered me personally, not just as the loss, but triggered me personally is a sign that it's still kind of there and it could be triggered. And it sadly could turn against me. And I've done my best to try to make friends with it, fight it, just do all the things. And I think at this point, I'm also interested in putting in kind of a fail-safe, because I don't know that we know how deep our minds go, right? Nobody knows the depth of the psyche. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of times people talk about their ancestors. I think people forget that our ancestors go back hundreds of thousands of years. I mean, people talk about hundreds of years. They might even talk about thousands of years. our ancestors go back hundreds of thousands of years. 50,000 years ago, we had human being walking around. 50,000 years. How deep is the psyche? Right? We are carrying this DNA, right? And it has this living memory. Okay, well, and our minds are attuned with this living memory, this DNA that is tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years old. How deep can the psyche go? I don't know. And so part of this realization with the loss of my friend and the way it happened is I don't know what my mind is capable of. I don't know when it might suddenly, do something, and it has done things before. So I know it's capable of. And so I think at some point, I think that's where I am now, is I'm like, okay, then what is sort of the most hopeful solution? Like, what is a fail-safe you could put into place so that if you're not able to really rectify the depths of your psyche and it does turn on you one day, is there also another part? And I know there is. There's a part of us that wants to live, that keeps wanting to try, that believes in the impossible, believes in miracles, believes in the improbable, believes in trying again and again and again. I want to give that part of my psyche a few tools. Like, say these words. I am not safe with myself. I need help. Say these words. Things are really severe. Like, I'm not okay. Truly. Like, it's, can I say whatever words I need to say to convey to another person that I'm not just struggling, I'm not just having a hard time. I've moved past being able to help myself, and I now need others. And the other thing that really makes me want to cry, but when I started Lucidess, it all revolved around an app, so that no matter where someone was, they could quickly go to it, and it would give them, had these beautiful little quotes, very short, like 5, 6, maybe up to 8 words. And with the quote, there was a beautiful image, and it was going to have all kinds of different styles. So you could choose like the kind of topic, you could choose the type of art style. It was funny because at the time it was all going to need to be hand done, like hand coded, hand drawn. I had all the quotes. I got a gazillion quotes. That'd be great. I'm sure other people have great quotes as well. But it was so that in that moment, if there was no one else you could turn to, you could go there and choose a topic and an art style, and choose these different things, because it's not just about the words, right? Like art, when there's a quote, I did a tribute page for my friend where people are posting memories and pictures for this gentleman that recently passed. And at the top, I did a Hans Christian Andersen quote, and it's, "Where words fail, music speaks." Well, that's true also of just like art, like visual art. And so the visual art was also a part of the quote, meaning we're trying to wake up the brain, the parts of the brain that have shut down during those times. And so, now that I'm thinking about it, it would be easy to have, you could choose some background music, a style of background music as you read the quotes and looked at the artistry that you loved. So whether your artistry was like all geometric, you just black and white geometry, and that's the kind of art you want, or whether it was nature, or whether it was animals, and maybe even just like all cats, just want all cats, or, and I have to say, I'm not a big AI proponent. I still believe in hand-drawn art is still way more better, blah, 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 but it could be done a lot easier today, at least the coding part. Be not, anyway, I don't know where I'm going, but I know where I'm going. I know where I started. I know where I'm going. Okay. I started Lucidess to try to help, because I know the struggles I've had. And there were times when I was really struggling, when I would find a quote and I would write it down. and then I would draw around it, and then I would stick it on my wall. And there was a time, I remember when I was in South Carolina, it was during 2020, so that already was, I'm in a brand new city, never been there. I know no one. I know absolutely no one, and it's COVID. I mean, everything is on lockdown. And so I'm literally 24/7 in a strange place, like just trying to get through COVID and just, anyway, it was hard times. And so it was almost like every other day or daily, I would find a quote and I would draw and then I would stick it on the wall. I literally covered like every wall in this. I was there for about 6 months. I literally covered like every wall in this small apartment was covered with these. And I was just like, and I would every day, like I couldn't not look at them and admire my work and read my quotes. And there were so many, it didn't matter where I looked, I had to see these beautiful quotes. Most of them were mine. They were things I would say to myself. Where suddenly it would just come, something would come from within me and I would write it down. I'd be like, oh, that's beautiful. I need to remember that. And it was when I came back home after living there that I started Lucidess. And I started it based on what I had done to help myself get through that really hard time. And I still have this freaking website. It's been sitting there. I mean, it's just like, so this happens and I'm like, but that's exactly what I've been trying to do, is to help people help themselves. I mean, I still believe there's nothing as good as human interaction. I also believe that we can do a lot to help ourselves, and I have done that, and I'm just trying to share some of that. So the third part was just kind of exploring what I don't know. I honestly don't know what to say. That's probably all I have for now. Sadly, I just, everybody I've talked to either it has or knows someone has severely struggled with their mental health, or has helped a friend who's been struggling with their mental health, friend, father, mother, child, brother, sister, family. It's not rare. And I don't want it to become commonplace. Commonplace in fact that it's happening. Would be nice if it was. Mental health has come a long way as far as, the shame and the stigma, but it's all still there. And I could get into how the healthcare system completely failed him. I'll just say it. He did about a week before he went to the ER and said he couldn't sleep. And they gave him some kind of pills. Okay, I totally digress. It has nothing to do with it. Not what we're talking about here. So, I have to say I have been shocked not how deeply I've been affected by the grief and the loss of this beautiful person in my life, but how much it's affected my own relationship with mental health, my own perspective of worth, meaning our worth truly has nothing to do with what we do. Literally, our worth is just the fact that we exist. this, we don't need each other because of what we do. It's just the fact that, just even just like knowing someone is there, living their life is beautiful. So, it's also really made me realize how much we matter to others, even if it's never said, or said not enough, or not well conveyed. We're really so precious to each other. And the loss of one extends farther than I imagined, and deeper than I imagined. And I feel like there's a lot more for me to discover on this journey. This specific one, I feel like I'm just sort of scratching the surface of what does life mean? What does it mean to live? Which is a funny thing to say because, I've asked for a chance to live again, after all the disastrous things in my life. I'm asking for a chance to live again, and I've definitely defined living again by being able to do certain things. And this kind of smashed that whole ideal that I had set. Just the simplicity of literally being alive and breathing is living again. What does connection mean? What does communication mean? What does care mean? Concern? What does it mean to play? And laughter has been a big thing for me the last few months. Just not laughing at because I'm happy or laughing at jokes, but just laughing at all of it, just laughing with life. I find myself more and more, there are moments where I laugh and I'm not even entirely sure what I'm laughing about, but the moment truly is humorous. There's joy in life, but there's also humor in life. I think if you're chuckling right now, joy is beautiful, and there's absolutely a current of joy through everything. But there's also humor. Life has a sense of humor. I don't always like it, don't always get it, but there are times when it catches me off guard and I have to laugh. So laughter, and being able to laugh at a lot of it, because there's no making sense. I will never understand what happened. I'm not even seeking to. I'm actually not even going to go down that path. I'm more just grieving and, asking to, I'm not even asking what has appeared before me. The doorway before me is, really becoming more intimate with my own mental health and understanding the many aspects of being mentally healthy. And it's funny because I don't think many people, including lots of the greatest therapists, I don't think many people would say this is a part of mental health, but I think it is. I think being able to say, I am not safe with myself, I need help, is one of the most profoundly healthy mental things you could do. I know it's a physical act, but it begins with the mental acuity and mental process of being able to witness oneself clearly enough to say the words. And that is mental wellness, is to be able to say those words to someone because you need to. And I don't know that that's I'm sure that's not in any book anywhere. I'm sure it says to ask for help, but that's so vague. It's not. It's fine. It probably works for a lot of people, but I think those words have probably failed. The same way we practice anything, the same way we practice anything in life. Imagine if we practiced asking for help, so that we knew we could, and we knew not that we could ask, and we could also listen to someone, that someone could say it to us, and we wouldn't also have our own freak out, trippy moment, right? Oh, someone is asking me for help. I've heard these words before. I know that I can. Communication, connection. Yeah. Well, I just bless us all with a lot of grace for each of us struggling with our own mental health, maybe witnessing someone else's mental health struggles, maybe both. There's a lot of grace around this, and hopefully in that we can continue to bring it into a place of balance. Where true conversation, communication, and connection can occur around this subject. In this subject, I know for me, a big part of it is still lessening the fear, the fear I have of my own mind. And what I've learned through meditation is that the fear is never true. That's not quite right. If I can, when I find those moments where I'm able to literally become the fear, and I'm in a safe space, I'm meditating, and I can just, it has a lesson, and then it transforms, and then it's gone. And I realize I don't need to be afraid of the thing that I was afraid of, that it somehow has transformed. And it always sort of leaves that golden nugget of understanding or wisdom or insight or something. So that's another thing I'll be I'll be being with is just this fear I have of my own mind, or that part of my mind, that part of my psyche. Which it's nice because I used to think it was me, and now I clearly know it is a part of my psyche that needs help and attention, but it's not me. And there was a long time where I thought it kind of just was me. It was like this core part of me, and now I just realize it's a part, and it has seemed so big because it's scary. And I'm not saying it isn't something to be wary of and to be thoughtful about and not just go barreling in. I'm certainly going to take my time deepening my relationship with my mind, with that part of myself, and yeah. So, grace to us all. Have a beautiful day.